Alright guys, how's it going? In this video we are going to be analysing this article by Paul Joyce behind us. Brittle Liverpool aren't doing basics and it could get even worse in Paris. Now this article was published on the 4th of April, so it's a couple of days ago. After the Liverpool game, of course. I must say I wasn't happy with this numpty after the game, giving it the, to the fans, sort of thing. Give them something to, be noisy about. Didn't like his attitude at all, to be honest. Anyway, that's another topic. So, Paul Joyce, for those of you that don't know, is the closest journalist to Liverpool Football Club. I get extremely excited when I see an article come out from Paul Joyce because I know that I'm going to enjoy, breaking it down, analysing it, seeing what he's got to say, basically work out what Michael Edwards wants us to know. So whenever you see a Paul Joyce article, and Ornstein as well, they're the two closest journalists to Liverpool Football Club. The only two you need to listen to be honest. But you've also got to be, be careful. You've got to look for club messaging, propaganda, things like that. You don't get provided information, and have a close relationship with the big cheese unless you're also doing something for them. Remember that. So it's a two-directional relationship. So anyway, Paul Joyce, when one of his articles comes out, these are my favourite ones to review. Obviously, I get Dave, my AI assistant, to do that. If you're new to the channel, Dave's been trained for probably, 18 months or so to analyse football news articles, the journalists that write them and the platforms that push them on us. So it's not a case of throwing an article randomly at, ChatGPT or any kind of AI or anything. Dave has specifically been trained to look for certain things. And what you'll see from his analysis is that we have a huge amount of data for each journalist that we talk about. So when Dave analyses an article like he does with this one, he can pull up comparisons to previous tone in previous articles and also other journalists and see where they contradict each other or change. I think this video is going to be very, very interesting. I don't know how long it's going to be, but I would highly recommend that you watch it. I went over this yesterday, that's why I know that. I did this on a live stream yesterday. But obviously I know some of you weren't around for that, so I want to to give the analysis to you again. So I'll be repeating myself, but I think it's really important that you guys see it. So straight away, Dave says, "All right, Dunk, this is a very different Joyce piece. If the 2nd of April article was controlled optionality, this one is something else entirely. This is the first time across all the Joyce pieces you've shown me where the tone shifts from measured positioning to open dismantling. Let's go through it properly. First impression, what type of article is this? This is where Dave is trained to make that, that decision, that analysis on any Joyce or Ornstein article is, hey, Dave, what kind of article is this? This is not a balancing piece, a structural overview, a both sides analysis. This is a full-blown performance indictment. The language alone tells you that brittle, witless surrender, complete and utter abdication of responsibility, soft underbelly, not doing basics, harrowing defeat, lucky if one comes at all. That is not Joyce being careful. That is Joyce turning the dial up hard. Massive tone shift versus previous Joyce articles. This is exceptionally important. So compare this article on the 4th of April to the Joyce article on the 2nd of April. On the 2nd of April, steadfastly behind Slot, want him to emerge from turbulence, tolerance for pain, project logic, long-term thinking. The 4th of April article, should not test the patience of FSG too much. Where are the signs anything will improve? Further unravelling, soft underbelly, mentality not there, same weaknesses months later. That is a clear escalation. This is no longer backing with caveats. This is backing under pressure. Now the key line about Slot in this article, and it says here, Dave's put it in brackets, very important. This is the line everything revolves around. That speaks directly to a head coach who should not test the patience of owner Fenway Sports Group too much. That is not neutral. That is a warning. Joyce is essentially saying the problems are now directly linked to slot, and FSG's patience is not unlimited. This is a huge shift from steadfast just 2 days earlier. Remember, steadfast, Ornstein also using that word, steadfast support of the manager, right? It's that steadfast support that there's no contract extension yet. But in those articles where they say steadfast, they keep saying, but that could change depending on how results go. But it is a huge shift from steadfast support to, shouldn't test the patience of FSG. Is this still club messaging? Again, Dave is trained to look for club messaging in these articles, things that we might not, necessarily spot just from quickly reading an article. Partly, but very different messaging. This is not, we are calm, trust the process, which is what we've had previously, right? This feels more like, we are unhappy and things must improve quickly. Notice how the messaging has evolved. Earlier messaging from Ornstein and earlier Joyce has been transition, patience, long-term, turbulence. This article, basics not being done, mentality questioned, repeated failures, same issues months later, pressures on manager, patience warning. That suggests the internal mood has hardened. Is Joyce protecting Edwards and Hughes? Again, this is a question that's been added to Dave's analysis of all articles by Joyce and Ornstein, right? So this is an additional one that he would look for. Is Joyce protecting Edwards and Hughes? This is where it gets interesting. In this piece, Edwards and Hughes are barely mentioned. That's not accidental, because what Joyce does instead is focus heavily on players' mentality, focus heavily on basic errors, focus heavily on on-pitch failure, then link it directly to the head coach. So the blame hierarchy becomes players, performance, mentality, slot, not structure, recruitment, Edwards Hughes. That is a shift. Interpretation? Well, this piece leans away from executive blame and puts the spotlight squarely on the coach and the players. That does indirectly protect Edwards and Hughes. The fundamentals narrative. Joyce repeats this idea. Liverpool are failing at basics. That's important because when a team is failing at structure, blame recruitment. Tactics, blame system. Basics, blame coaching and mentality. Joyce is choosing basics in this article. That is not accidental. That frames this as, this is not a project issue, this is a fundamental failure. And that points more towards slot. The fan pressure section, stronger than before. I spoke to someone very close to the club last week, and I'm sure I made a video about it on here. And the message was, the more angry the fans are, the more protests from the fans, the more pressure is on the owners to do something. They didn't necessarily mean protests in terms of, turning out on the streets or anything like that, but protesting maybe financially, maybe not watching the games, not buying merchandise, not buying hospitality tickets, which I'm told the hospitality situation demand has died, right, this season somewhat. So the fan pressure section, stronger than before in this article. This is also ramped up. Empty away end, fans leaving early, chants about Alonso, army of supporters doubting him growing. That's a quote in the article. This is no longer fan frustration exists. This is fan revolt is expanding. And Joyce deliberately connects that to external pressure for Alonso. Again, not random. The PSG warning, very strategic. This part is key. Who knows what level of humiliation and embarrassment the holders could inflict? That's not just previewing PSG. That is raising the stakes for what happens next. Joyce is effectively saying this could get much worse, and very publicly worse. That's how you prepare readers for escalation, consequences, and potential decisions. The same problem since November angle that's written into the article. This is crucial. Joyce references Curtis Jones in November, Szoboszlai now, same issues. That builds a narrative of no progress, and that kills the earlier argument of transition, adaptation, and time needed. Now it becomes, it's April, and nothing has changed. That's dangerous for any manager. The real message of this article, if you strip everything back, the piece is saying the team lacks fight, the basics are wrong, the problems are repeated, the manager is now directly linked, FSG's patience has limits, fan pressure is growing, things will get worse very soon. That is not a defence piece. Now, compared to Ornstein messaging, his recent commentary, this is where it gets really interesting. On March 11th, Ornstein, he used quotes such as steadfast backing, multi-window transition, extreme calm, long-term project. That was March 11th and Ornstein. Flip to Joyce on April 4th, don't test patience. Where are the signs? Further unravelling, mentality not there. So Ornstein equals boardroom calm. Joyce now equals performance alarm. That contrast suggests the messaging may be shifting in real time. Your 3 questions. Now, these are additional questions that has been, Dave's been trained, if you like, to the end of a Joyce article, for example, there's these 3 new questions by default. All right, so each time I submit a new article, I don't ask these, he just knows that I want the answers to them. 1, is there criticism of Slot? Yes, stronger than any previous article. Not indirect, not subtle, direct. Linked to mentality, linked to basics, linked to repeated failures, linked to patience being tested. 2, is Slot's position generally under threat? Yes, more than before. Previously under review, now under pressure. The phrase, should not test the patience of FSG too much, is basically warning territory. Number 3, will he be the manager next season? I always ask him his opinion. What do you reckon after that article that you've just analysed, Dave? Will he be the manager next season? Well, this article moves the needle. Before, slight lean towards staying, now genuinely 50-50. If PSG goes badly, I think it tilts towards change. And I would agree with that. I've had emails in. I think I've gone over them on the live stream. Some of them I've not been able to read out to you guys. But, and the conversation I had last week was, you got to watch the Man City and PSG games. That could change everything. But I don't think you need to be close to the club to work that one out personally. The final verdict, this is the strongest negative Joyce piece so far. It is not propaganda, it is not balance, it is not reassurance, it is a warning piece. Not a sack call, but a clear shift from backing with patience to backing under strain with limits approaching. So what's going on here? Summary, simple version, 2nd of April article by Joyce. We still back him, but summer decisions are coming. The 4th of April article, he's pushing that back into its limits now. And that, Dunk, is why this one matters, because Joyce hasn't flipped, but he's definitely tightened the tone. And I believe Joyce has a new article out, which I will take a look at for you today. I think this is a very, very interesting analysis and a very good one. And having Dave to assist me to compare to previous tone and even Ornstein on certain dates, how would I remember when Ornstein, said those things, for example? So I think Dave's done a good job there. I welcome feedback from you. I'd like to know what you think following this. Listen, my opinions are consistent. I have said for a very, very, very long time, he's toast. I couldn't see how he could possibly hold on to the job, maybe a Champions League win. But I just think the football will still be dull. I don't come out and say these things just because we lose to Manchester City. I would say these things if we'd have beat Man City 4-0. So it doesn't make any... I don't flip-flop, right? I'm sticking to what I believe and what I hear from people that I trust, right? So we shall see. I'm not an ITK. I wouldn't want to be. I'm 51, not 15. I don't need to behave like that. But I'm still of the opinion that he will be gone in the summer. I absolutely do believe that that the club have spoken to Alonso and Gerrard in different capacities. Doesn't mean they're going to do anything, but I think that they've still had those conversations. The only bit that I'm a bit confused about is who had those conversations, because I can't imagine it being Edwards and Hughes. So that's a bit strange. But there's people that I absolutely trust, guys, in Spain and in England, that have categorically insisted that Alonso has been spoken to. And you're not seeing a lot of speculation about Alonso and other clubs. Have you noticed that? So I think Alonso's future is pretty certain. Now, that doesn't mean he's agreed to come to Liverpool, but I genuinely do think that he's got something lined up, because we're not seeing much speculation about him at all. I think there may be a mail stand email that will interest you, which will be next. I'll record that next, okay? Which ties in with the Alonso stuff. All right, guys. Let me know what you think of the analysis. There is another article which I'll take a look at for you as soon as possible. It might be by the end of today. But this was an important one, I thought. Okay, here comes the grift. If you enjoy the channel, please thumbs up the video. Please drop me a comment. There's a channel membership if you want to join the channel and support me. There's a thanks button, a super thanks button, which is very important to the channel revenue-wise. Without the super thanks, channel memberships, things like that, I wouldn't be able to bring this channel to you. It's just the truth. You know, I'm very transparent about that. I'm old school. I don't, sell products to you. I don't clickbait. I don't make videos for the fun of it. I try to run the show properly to not waste your time. But, the downside to that is you get less revenue from doing that. All right, less views, less revenue. But there's a core of people that support me on here that we should be very grateful to. So, yeah, shout out to you guys. Of course, if you use the super thanks, for example, or any of the links in the video description, I always give a shout out to my peoples in my morning briefings. All right, guys. This is paywalled, I think. I have a subscription to this. But there are ways of accessing all of the articles at the Times, the Mail, not that you'd want to access the Mail, the Athletic, etc., etc. You just pop a link in and it will open it up, apparently give you a snapshot of that. I can't tell you how to do that because I'd get into trouble. But there's a lot of helpful people within the community in the comments section that might be able to assist you. All right, so I pay for the Times. I think it's worth it. I pay for the Athletic too, because guess what? Ornstein works for the Athletic, Joyce at the Times. So I subscribe to those because I need to. All right, guys, I'll leave it with you. Please thumbs up the video, drop me a comment, blah, 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 blah. All right, guys, see you in a bit.